The Lake County Board of Health will now conduct a public hearing. The statement I'm reading shall be incorporated into and made part of the record on these proceedings. The Board of Health has jurisdiction to conduct a public hearing on a variance application under section 1.9 of the Lake County On-Site Wastewater Treatment System Regulations. The purpose of this hearing is to consider whether the variance application should be approved. In consideration of the matter, the Board of Health will address section 1.9 of the Lake County On-Site Wastewater Treatment System Regulations as authorized in Colorado Regulation 43. The procedure to be followed in this hearing will be as follows. Members of the board will disclose any ex parte communications. County staff will make an initial presentation. The applicant may then make their presentation. After that, any persons either supporting or opposing the applicant may present evidence, and there is an option that such presentations shall be limited to a certain number of minutes. Supporting and opposing witnesses may be questioned by the board. Once questioning is concluded, no further questioning is permitted unless granted by the chair. The applicant may then present any rebuttal evidence. The parties and witnesses are asked not to submit redundant, irrelevant, or cumulative evidence. If someone has already made the point that you wish to make, simply say so. The chair will also require that all comments be made to the board and that there be no dialogue between the applicant and members of the audience. At the conclusion of the evidentiary portion of the hearing, the chair will entertain a motion to close the evidentiary portion of the hearing, and the board will discuss and weigh the evidence. Then there will be a motion to close the discussion phase of the public hearing. The chair of the Board of Health will entertain a motion on the application. The motion may take the form of one of the following recommendations. Approve the application with no conditions. Approve the application with recommended conditions. Approve the application with newly identified conditions, or deny the application. The board's decision will be in the form of a notice to approve or deny. Are there any objections to the jurisdiction of the board or to the form or substance of these proceedings?
None.
Hearing none, I will now ask each board member of health if you've had any ex parte communications to disclose, and if so, please disclose them now.
Sam Vera reached out to me. I referred the email and communications to our attorney. I did not correspond back.
He also called me, and I accepted the phone call and asked him if this was going to come up in front of the board, and then told him that I couldn't discuss it. So we talked for some time, but I expressly told him I couldn't discuss this matter, so county staff may now make their initial presentation.
Thank you so much. So I'm just going to go over a few procedural things pursuant to the Lake County On-Site Wastewater Treatment System Regulations. The Board of Health may approve a variance from a requirement of this regulation for legally created parcels, which this parcel is, where a conforming OWTS cannot be developed and variances cannot be granted by staff. Approval of today's variance must be based on evidence presented by the applicant or their designee, and the applicant and designee shall be they have the burden of proof to demonstrate that the variance is justified and will pose no greater risk to public health and the environment than would assist in meeting the regulations. The Board of Health must determine if this item has been addressed prior to granting a variance. And today's decision, a notice of denial of a variance shall include those reasons which form the basis for the denial, and whereas a notice of approval of a variance shall include requirements or any conditions of the approval. It's also noteworthy that the variance, if granted, and any conditions thereof, shall be recorded on the deed of the property, and any expenses associated with that recording shall be the responsibility of the property owner. So today, you will be hearing a variance request from Mr. Samuel Veer for his property located up Weston Pass Road or County Road 7, also known as 11715 County Road 7. And identified as the CK Load Union in 351079. And what the applicant is proposing is a limited use of vault privy tank to serve a single room cabin for his gray water and an incinerating toilet for the solid waste. This is all to service a backcountry structure that is now available for residential use through the creation of the backcountry zoning, which this parcel is located within. One notable condition for this type of limited use is that the occupancy is limited to no more than 90 consecutive days or 180 days within a year. And so that is captured if the variance is granted through the deed of the property so that it is kept in perpetuity, that the structure that would accompany this infrastructure is only allowed on a temporary basis. So that is the kind of some of the caveats and the uniquenesses of this type of use within the backcountry zone district. We did refer Mr. Veer's engineered design to SEH, our land use engineer and septic engineer, for review. They did provide some red lines. They were very minimal. So the only condition that staff is suggesting as part of this review is that the applicant satisfactorily address those comments and red lines. The applicant had initially furnished one type of incinerating toilet through a specific manufacturer and has adjusted that, but has provided us that specification. So it is, he may talk about maybe the differences or why he chose to go with a different manufacturer. The incinerating toilet appears to be serviced by a 5-gallon propane tank. So again, Mr. Veer can address kind of how the propane will be furnished to the site and kind of what his operational plan is for this. But unless you have any specific questions of me, I would be happy to introduce the applicant who has a well-prepared presentation for you today to address the finding of the impact from the system and relative to the public health and safety of Lake County. One other item though, just quickly, is that the application was duly noticed. The regulation does require that adjacent property owners be notified through this process, and that has been performed through certified mail. We only received an inquiry from an adjacent property owner, Mr. Vosberg, did contact staff, and it was just a question of inquiry. He was familiar with the Weston Hut commercial operation at this location and even communicated that maybe he had been a previous owner of this parcel. So he just had some clarifying questions but did not pose any objection. So that's what we have for you today.
Thank you.
Absolutely. We've also provided notice, suggested motions for conditional approval with engineering review and also proposed motion for denial. So those are included in your staff report as well.
I see that, and it says vault privy.
It is a limited vault privy for the gray water.
Okay.
And that is what the OWTS is. The incinerating toilets taking care of the solids, so the deviation from on-site wastewater treatment is specific to the vault privy because the solid material is addressed through the incinerating toilet that results in ash that can be removed from the site. So really the deviation from the on-site wastewater treatment is the vault, the system.
You're not asking us to consider the toilet.
The toilet I would say, is still a kind of an integral part of the system, but what is a deviation from the OWTS regulations is not having a solid treatment area and a tank. So anything associated with the tank needs, as far as solid waste is gonna be addressed with the incinerating toilet. So it really is the ball privy that we're looking for, approval of today. The incinerating toilet, of course, is the method by which Mr. Beer is addressing solid waste.
Mr. Beer, go ahead.
All right. Well, thank you. First off, thank you, Anne. Thank you to the board, and especially thank you to CC for helping put this meeting together. I appreciate that. So to kick it off, yeah, we're planning on building a small cabin. It's under 400 square feet, just below the Weston Pass hut. If some of you are familiar with that area. It is, there's a part of this cover slide that's cut off, so it actually at the bottom should say variance proposal for incinerating toilet system supplemented by gray water tank. So what is an incinerating toilet? So these toilets, some of you may be familiar with incinerating toilets, but I'll just go over it to kind of put it on record here. This toilet specifically that you're seeing here on the right is the EcoJohn. It is waterless, propane powered. You can see on the back there's a little propane fitting. Essentially propane line comes from outside the structure, goes through and hooks up to the toilet just like any other propane running equipment would. When you're done using the restroom, you hit a button, it drops the solid waste down into a sealed incinerating chamber. And at that point, it incinerates the waste using propane. The process takes, I believe, around 20 minutes for solid waste, and a little bit less for liquid waste. And the end result is just a sterile ash that, safe to the touch, safe to dump in the trash can. Even a lot of people dispose of it just by putting it on their gardens and using it as a compost. Although there wouldn't really be much nutritional value to that, being that it's been fully sanitized. Generally the way these toilets are hooked up, they're externally vented. So meaning, the room that this toilet's contained in is not going to have any interaction with the burning. There's no exhaust into the room. There's no, no risk of CO, carbon monoxide or any of that from the burning process. It directly vents to the outside of the structure. The exhaust on this particular unit, and actually most incinerating toilets, is a double wall pipe, and so it's safe to the touch. There's a inner pipe that gets hot as it exhausts, but then the outer pipe that makes contact with any surfaces is cool. The high temperatures will kill off any sort of bacteria in the waste, and then there is essentially a little, call it catch bowl on the bottom that gets emptied. I believe it's every 80 uses, somewhere in that ballpark. It might be 50. But it would be in the grand scheme of an average house, I think the average person uses the restroom and flushes a toilet 5 times a day. So assuming 4 people are occupying the structure, that would be about 20 times a day. So it'd be able to go multiple days before it would need to be emptied. So that's the incinerating toilet side. This is really a 2-part system. We have the incinerating toilet on one hand. That's going to handle all the solid and liquid waste. And then the cabin also is going to have a sink, and that sink is going to be used for washing hands, all the things that a standard sink would be used for. So we'll be using all biodegradable soaps within the structure. And this essentially, a standard septic tank would take all of your solid waste and mix it with all of your gray water and end up in the same tank. The design we've put forward here separates that out, and it's really done in a method that is safety minded. So your standard septic system has a propensity to fail every 15 to 25 years. In situations where there are occasional use or high altitude, a lot of those situations, the failure rates are actually a lot higher. And as a lot of you know, when a septic tank fails, oftentimes, I believe the next slide actually has a little bit of a picture. The background picture there is what your yard would look like when the septic tank fails, where you have this black water, hazardous, sewage that ends up flowing out and becomes, essentially an environmental concern. Um, with the system we have put forward, that risk is completely eliminated because all of your solid waste and liquid waste is all incinerated and is contained right there, in the toilet. And so there's zero risk of any environmental, challenges with that. Um, if the toilet, if there were something to go wrong with the toilet, you'd know right then and there in the toilet because you'd see that it wasn't processing the waste, and it would be a simple problem as opposed to something that most people, I being included, I had a septic system fail on me about 10 years ago, and you hear the alarm go off, and next thing you know, you pull the lid off the cover, and there's sewage flowing everywhere. So not a pleasant thing to deal with, and especially in the backcountry, not something that is great for the environment. So the gray water tank is a much better way to deal with this. On the left here, we have a picture of a vault privy. There are quite a few structures in the backcountry, I believe, that use these. As a lot of you go into a lot of state parks, and you'll use these. As soon as you open the door, you're holding your breath the whole time. Oftentimes there's flies flying around them, depending on how well they're maintained. And quite honestly, they're disgusting in most cases. Um, on the right is a rendering of what our bathroom will look like using an incinerating toilet. Obviously, the toilet will look a little bit different than the one there in the picture, and we're not going to have the sink in the room. But as far as the total presentation, this is very similar to what we're looking to have. It will be, contained right there, safe, sanitary, and no risk of both flies, rodents, and that kind of thing, as well as the safer gray water system. So incinerating systems prevent surface discharge of any black water. I think we covered that. No toilets failing, just servicing the actual toilet itself. Really, there isn't a whole lot of servicing with the toilet. It really is. They are very, very reliable. Incinerating toilets been used for about 60 years in America. I actually went to a great length to find examples of, problems with them that, either fires or, environmental health. And I absolutely could not find articles that had anything to do with it. So very well documented safety records. So comparing to a septic, we covered that. No overflow, no groundwater, all contained right there within the structure. So really incinerating toilets would be the pinnacle for environmental protection. So one of the questions that comes up is, well, why can't you use a standard septic system? And primarily the terrain, the high elevation, and plays a part into it. Alternative is required to support an off-grid cabin, but probably one of the best reasons not to use a standard septic system is just the occasional use that's built into the code. Standard septic systems, they essentially require regular use in order to continue the bacteria in the tank that are involved in the digestion process. If you go long periods without using them, oftentimes that bacteria dies, and that increases your risk of the having a backup or having a failure in your tank. In addition to that, when septic systems sit for a long time, especially in dry climates like Colorado, the liquids tend to evaporate out of the tank if they sit for 6 months or more. And that itself leaves just that solid at the bottom of the tank, which reduces the tank volume. And over a period of a few years, that keeps happening. Eventually, you have a tank full of, essentially solid waste. And then you run into the same problem of the system failing. So overall, we picked this system and we designed this system out of an abundance of caution for the environment, and also a system that's going to best fit our needs for the structure. There's no hazardous waste storage. anywhere on site. It exceeds the safety of a traditional septic system. These toilets are specifically designed with the environment in mind, and like I said, they've been used for over 60 years in America. So the ask here is for approval of the variance to install the incinerating toilet supplemented by a gray water system. I would open it up to questions if anybody has any questions on that.
I have a couple. How you doing?
Doing
So,
well.
Does the toilet require any power?
So it requires limited 12-volt power. So we're going to have a full solar system in the structure. And so a lot of people actually run them off of like a 12-volt car battery, and they'll last for my understanding, weeks off of a 12-volt car battery. But we're going to have a full solar system, and it'll plug into the wall just like just like any other electric component would.
Okay. And then, are you gonna have a large propane tank up there? Are you gonna carry propane in, or?
Yeah, that's a great question. So propane, these are designed to work off of your standard 25-pound bottle. We're intending to use a larger, like 100-pound bottle. But the intention on that is to be able to remove the bottle off site when we're not using the cabin and it's not in regular use. So if we winterize it, we can take the propane off site and there won't be any propane on site. So essentially the bottle would hook up a lot like your barbecue propane bottle would, just to the outside of the structure. When on site, it would be out of view from the road, tucked behind the structure, not not in an area that would be an eyesore to anybody driving up and down the road there.
Cool, that's it. I guess your design will address the snow shedding onto that pipe. So that's not really a question. That's just something I saw in the drawing there. If the snow comes off the roof and damages or somehow grabs that pipe, bends it over or something.
Yeah, that's actually a great question. So the design that we actually have worked up is we're planning on kind of combining two of those models, and the manufacturer is okay with it. So the pipe will run up vertically in the inside of the structure, and then it'll pop out the wall and be underneath the eave of the cabin. So if snow sloughs off, the snow will not have an ability to grab it.
Okay. And the ash, you're gonna take that to our local landfill, or you're gonna carry that out, obviously, whenever it's necessary.
Yeah, it's not necessary to carry it off, but we will. It'll go in the trash and it'll be carried off with the rest of the trash, just for better use.
Sam, just to double check, you said that the liquids will be from the vault toilet or from the vault gray water. Those will evaporate. Is that true even at that altitude and with those temperatures?
So I was saying with a standard septic tank, if you leave them sit for a long time, you have that concern. So we don't have any liquids or solids going from the toilet to the gray water tank. So the gray water tank in our design is solely for a single sink within the structure.
Okay.
Yep.
And the pump truck's gonna be able to get up that road and to the tank?
Yep, we can get a pump truck up there. We could also we have a tank to take it off site.
Okay.
That's really wild.
Yeah, and gray water actually in a lot of areas they allow it to just be pumped out and for irrigation. A lot of municipalities will allow that, but we intend on taking it off site. We have a dump site here in northern Colorado that we prefer to use.
Okay. Sam, do you have any problems, agreeing and satisfying the red lines from the county engineer on our part?
No, I think we've actually satisfied all of those. I don't know if Ann could confirm that, but we did. Actually, I have not sent back the engineering. I think there's one piece that the engineering, they wanted us to specify that the tank wasn't gonna drain in, but no, I don't think we will have any problems with that.
Yeah, they were pretty minimal, red lines, honestly, and so we can work directly with Mr. Bear to, ensure that those have been adequately addressed, but I don't see any, problem. And staff is recommending, conditional approval of the variance based upon the evidence that Mr. Beer has, provided today, with the condition of just addressing those items. And an understanding that there will be a restriction on the deed that this is temporarily occupied.
Also residentially occupied? Like, is it clear that it's residential and not commercial?
The, backcountry structure, license that, Mr. Beer is seeking is specific to residential use, not to commercial use.
Thank you.
Number 4, anybody in the room supporting or opposing or online?
Any public comment?
Trustee Tucker?
Yeah, trustee Tucker.
Trustee Tucker, whoever Trustee Tucker is, do you wanna make any public comment?
I would support his application.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Within the county.
I said I would support his application. Did you hear me?
Yeah, can you tell us who you are and where you live, please?
I live in a house in Virginia. I have a project I've been trying to get to work on up there, and so I'm following along with the process that you're using, and hope to be in front of you at some point in the near future.
Cool, and is Trustee Tucker your name?
J. Tucker, trustee.
J. Tucker, trustee. Cool, thank you so much.
Time for a motion?
Sure.
Okay. I'll make a motion to conditionally approve the variance request to allow a vault privy in place of a traditional on-site wastewater treatment system for a temporarily occupied backcountry structure on the property known as 11715 County Road 7 in Leadville, Colorado, parcel number 2747-350-00-025 in Lake County, Colorado.
Commissioner Elsa seconds.
Go to a vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Wonderful, thank you, Sam.
Well, thank you. I appreciate your time.
Yes, Cece will follow up with you, on getting documents recorded, for the property and, for the approval today by the board.
Okay, great.
And that concludes this meeting of the Board of Health. 2:13 PM on 4/9/25.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.